Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And today we are going to be talking about Iron Lung, which is Markiplier's directorial debut and his video game adaptation of the short 90-minute video game based on the same title. Now, before I even get into my thoughts on this film, um, this has been a film I've been looking forward to for quite a while now. Now, I don't really remember when this movie was announced, but I do remember hearing when Markiplier said that he was going to be making a film off of that video game. Now, I have not watched and played the game since maybe by the time that video came out, back when I was really watching YouTube a whole bunch. But I don't really remember much on this title, so I was kind of like a blur when I was watching the movie. But nevertheless, I was really looking forward to this movie, mainly just because Markiplier was making a movie. Now, I grew up watching Mark. I watched him play the Five Nights at Freddy's games, which is probably what he's always going to be known for, the king of Five Nights at Freddy's. I have a shit ton of nostalgia because of that, and just other popular titles. Like I grew up watching him play Alien Isolation. I also watched him play games with just Mark with Bob and Wade with either games like Uno or Hand Simulator, whatever. I grew up watching Markiplier because he was the guy that really just was entertaining to me as a kid. I've been watching him since I was maybe 5, 6 years old, however old I was in 2014. I grew up watching him, and he has always been someone that I've look up to. He is one of the biggest inspirations to me when it came to making YouTube videos. Originally, when I was going to do YouTube, I was going to do Let's Plays like Jacksepticeye or Markiplier, but then I kind of leaned towards more movie reviews because I got influenced by others and how they do things, and I just love sharing my opinion on films. But nevertheless, Markiplier was still always an influence on me to do YouTube, and so I was very excited to see him do a film. And if I'm completely honest, if anybody else were to work on this project, if anyone else were to make this movie, I probably would not have watched it. The only reason I watched it because of Mark. I probably wouldn't have been excited nor looking forward to it. I unfortunately did not get to watch it in theaters back when it was releasing because obviously my theater's closed, as I've talked about multiple times, and I would have had to drive to go see it. And at the time, I did not have my license, so I could not have drive to go watch it. But I finally was able to watch it with my friend, who he and I have been wanting to watch this together ever since we figured out its release date and ever since we figured out its streaming release date, which thankfully Mark put it on YouTube for us to rent and buy, and he made it a very reasonable price, so thank you for that, Mark. And yeah, that this has just been a film I've been looking forward to ever since it's been announced. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the game. I'm just a big fan of Mark. So, with that all out of the way, here are my thoughts on Iron Lung. Starting off with my positives on Iron Lung, and the first thing that I want to say is that I am extremely proud of Mark. Now, it probably doesn't mean anything coming from me. I'm just a small YouTuber who has not even 400 subscribers, who just sits in his basement and talks about movies. And I know he doesn't know that I exist. I know he exists, obviously, and I'm a much smaller creator compared to him, obviously. But just for me personally, I am extremely proud of him for him to devote his time, his money, his energy, and get his friends and family involved into into this project. It is amazing, and it reminds me of good old Hollywood when upcoming filmmakers had very little money, very little people to work with, and they just made a film just simply as a passion project. And you look at the biggest directors today, that's how they started off. Like Christopher Nolan, he was turned down from film school, and he went on to go make following, and then he went on to make Memento, and now he's one of the biggest directors that we have in Hollywood today. And Sam Raimi, when it came to the Evil Dead, he basically had shit to work with, but he still made one of the best horror movies ever made, and ended up creating one of the biggest horror franchises ever. And for him to do something similar to those is just something I am extremely happy to see. Which I don't know how long he worked on this film for. I want to say at least a good 3-ish years. It seems like it felt that long, anyways. But for him to devote his own time, his energy into this film is something I am extremely happy to see and extremely proud of him for. He could have worked on literally any other project. He could have worked on something that is more near and dear to his heart. Maybe he could have worked on a bigger video game that he loves. Maybe he could have done a film adaptation of his favorite video game of all time, all I know. But he decided to take this small IP title that is hardly even a full expanded game and to turn it into a film just simply because of how much he really enjoyed it and he saw the appeal that it could be turned into a film. I am just so extremely proud to see that as someone who just loves film and loves small passion projects. And now even better is that we have other YouTubers that are doing very good in Hollywood right now. Like, excuse me, we have Obsession, which I'm still very eager to watch. That is now one of the biggest profitable movies ever made by a small YouTuber, which I'm very happy to see. And then you got Back Rooms, which is now A24's highest grossing film of all time, which I'm very happy to see. And to see YouTubers being able to make films for Hollywood and to have the huge success that they're having right now, I am just extremely happy to see that and extremely proud of Mark for what he did with this film, and I could not express that anymore. And I really enjoyed the sound design throughout the entire film because we're only in one small little area, obviously, because that's what that's what the game does. You just sit in a little submarine and do fuck all pretty much, and Mark has to basically improvise a lot of his parts, it seemed, but the sound design that we get is really well done, and I really enjoyed it because there's moments where he's like moving the submarine around and you can just hear the outside of it, which I really thought was cool, and the sound of the monster like thing or whatever the fuck it's called in this film. Just the sounds that thing makes is just really cool. And then there's just moments where like the submarine's freaking out, like isn't working and this thing isn't working, and so Mark's trying to do everything he can to fix it or whatever. Like I really enjoyed the sound design throughout the entire film, and it was very well done, and it made me like kind of quiver in my seat a little bit when I was watching it because of all the sounds going on and just how well done they were. Like especially for how low of a budget this movie is, I was very happy with that. And I'm someone that fucking adores sound design. Like I really I'm like a huge fan of it. Like the Godzilla movies, like I love the sound of that. Like the War of the Worlds, like there's just so many great sound designs that I can point out, but I'm just a huge sucker for that, and the sound design in this film I really liked. And I felt like this movie does a really good job at like expressing cabin fever in a way, kind of like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, where he's kind of cooped up in the hotel and kind of losing his mind. They kind of do something similar to that in this movie with Mark's character just sitting in in the submarine trying to figure out what's going on, and slowly as you watch the film, you can kind of tell he's kind of losing his mind a little bit. There's like a part where he breaks this like speaker thing to where he that's his only communication outside of this pod and into the the people that he's doing this for, like that's his only communication, and then he breaks it, and then there's like a moment where somebody seems to be talking to him, and he's kind of sitting there having a conversation with them, and he kind of breaks down into tears because he obviously he broke it and now he doesn't have any communication outside the world, and he kind of starts losing his mind because he's not able to talk to anyone. He only has himself in this pod, and he doesn't even know what's down there with him, basically. And there's this when this person seems to be talking to him. He's just like, "Can you just please just stay? Can you just continue to talk? Like I need someone to talk to." And he kind of breaks down into tears because he realizes like he's slowly losing his mind. And that was one of my favorite parts of this movie because not only did Mark do a good job making the movie, he does give a pretty good performance in this film, which I did not expect at all. And like that moment alone, I was just like that kind of solidified like Mark did a good job in performance wise in this film when he's literally writing, directing, producing, advertising. Like he literally did everything almost by himself. And for him to also give a great performance, I was just also really happy to see that. And that scene where he's kind of just losing his mind and starts breaking down into tears and realizing that. And so, yeah, I really liked that. I love how they kind of have a commentary on cabin fever a little bit, where you just kind of lose your mind when you're stuck in this one little area with no one to talk to, and you're on a mission that you don't know if you're going to be able to make it out alive. So I really like that. They did a really good job at expressing cabin fever in this film. And kind of continuing off that, this movie does a really good job at psychological terror. And, that's not at all what I expected would be in this movie. Now, yeah, it's described as a psychological thriller on Google. You Google it. But I didn't really expect it to be that way. And I really like that. I kind of already talked about it, about him kind of losing his mind, crying when this person over the speaker seems to be talking to him. But then later after that, he realizes is that that the speaker usually has a light when someone's talking to him. Like the light will go on and off saying like, "Oh, I'm talking to you," or "I'm off," or whatever. And he realizes that this person's been talking to him, but it hasn't been lighting up. And then he slowly starts to figure out that it's no one actually talking to him. And then he goes over, he grabs the cable, and he realizes that it's snapped off. And then he realizes that it's really the monster or creature, or whatever the fuck the thing is, been talking to him and basically trying to trick him. And that was literally one of the creepiest things in this movie. And I was literally sitting there. My friend called it. I'll give him credit. He called it, but I was like, nah, it's not gonna do that. But I was sitting there and that happened. I'm like, holy shit. And then it seems to do this weird, oh, maybe I just dreamt it type thing to where you as an audience, you don't really know if it was a dream, he was imagining it, or if this really did happen. Because moments later after that happens, the speaker's working again, and like the person that he's been communicating through to pretty much that the whole movie starts talking to him again. But obviously, since he's just experienced the monster talking to him, he's just like, well, what's my name? Like, how the fuck are you talking to me right now? And that was like a really well done scene to where you're kind of sitting there, you're like kind of and you as an audience as well are kind of agreeing with Mark's character, and you're like, yeah, like this is confusing, like what the fuck is going on here type thing. I really liked that. That was a really well done scene. And then like the scene where, he kind of has this weird dream scenario where like the creature thing is eating his submarine, and then he wakes up and the speaker talks to him. Like the psychological terror throughout this whole film was very, very well done and very well written. But now moving on to my negatives, and I only have two, and they're very minor. I do think that this movie should not have been 2 hours long. That was one of the first things that kind of turned me off when I was excited to watch this movie, and I saw the runtime was like 2 hours and 7 minutes, something like that. I think that's how long this movie is. That was one of the first things that kind of turned me away from the movie a little bit, because I was like, okay, I don't know how you're gonna make a 2 hour movie of a dude sitting in a submarine trying to find this creature thing and then get back to the surface or whatever. I don't know how you're going to pull that out as a 2 hour film. And me personally, I don't think he did a very good job at that. There are moments to where I'm literally thinking, okay, you could make this scene go by faster, or you could have cut this scene. There's literally just the scene of Markiplier taking off his shirt and just like looking at it because he gets hot all of a sudden. And then there's a scene where he's like looking through a toolbox and he's just like, holy shit, I had water this whole time, and he's just drinking it, which it's yeah, I understand we're kind of going along with his character and kind of experiencing what he's experiencing and trying to feel what he feels in a way. I get that's what they're going for, and I like that. But at the same time, 2 hours long, it kind of gets boring after a bit, and it felt tedious. And I'm kind of sitting there, I'm like, okay, like I'm just sitting there, and then there's like times where you think the movie's over, but then it kind of continues and keeps going, and that kind of gets annoying as well. To where I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh, you're not over. Oh, we still got 20 minutes. All right, let's keep going. But you know, I get what he's trying to go for, but it doesn't necessarily work. And my last negative kind of goes along with the 2 hour runtime. I do wish that we got more of an explanation on the character that we are watching. I forget his name. I just keep calling him Mark. That's what I'm going to keep calling him. I really wish we got a more of an explanation on Mark. Now, we do every now and then get some like flashbacks and hints and some explanations of what could have happened. Like at the very beginning of the movie, we just kind of learn that he's just like he literally says like you just put me in prison because I'm not doing this. I'd rather be in prison than do your bullshit or whatever. And well, you don't know what he's talking about, and you're kind of sitting there like okay. So he's like a convict and they're making him do this. That's interesting. Like you've seen that in other films before. And then throughout the movie we kind of learn that he's kind of responsible for some sort of like explosion that happened years ago, and he's being framed for it, and he's just like, that wasn't meant to happen. Like, I admit that I did that, but that was not meant to go that far. And I also do understand that this movie is going along with the lore of the game. I There is a video by Markiplier that does say Iron Lung, the lore continuation, something like that. I have not watched it personally, but as just a generic audience though too, the movie kind of expects you to know what he's talking about and what he is trying to explain to you about the character. Now, I get it. There are fans of this game that already know what's going on, but you also got to think about the general audience, like me, who I'm not overly familiar with this game. I have not seen Mark play it since he first originally played it, and I don't really like to rewatch videos all that much. And so I'm kind of sitting there and I'm kind of wondering. And my friend even told me, he's like, "Oh, you just don't know the lore." I'm like, "Okay, well, I feel like as a film, it should just try to explain it to you and kind of tell you what is going on." Because there are some people watching this movie that don't even know who Markiplier is, and there's some people watching this that don't even know that this is a video game adaptation. There are people out there that will watch this movie not knowing those things, and that's not going to speak well to them. Now there's reasons why some people didn't even like this movie, and that's probably why. So I get it that you are making this for the fans, and you're making this for people that are fans of Iron Lung or fans of Markiplier or whatever. But as a general audience, you got to remember there are some people watching this movie not knowing any of this shit. So I'm kind of sitting there just confused. Just because I don't know what's going on, and I do want more explanation, but you gotta remember there is a general audience out there that don't know what the hell you're talking about. All in all, guys, I really enjoyed Iron Lung. I thought it was a very well made movie for a directorial debut and for this small scale game that probably in a million years would have never gotten a video game adaptation if it wasn't for Mark. So I really enjoyed it. It's not a movie I can see myself rewatching a whole bunch, but I do definitely recommend it if you are a fan of Markiplier or if you're a fan of psychological terror. If you're a fan of Markiplier, you'll probably end up watching it anyways. If you're a fan of the game, you'll probably end up watching it. But as a general audience, I would probably tell you to watch this if you are a fan of psychological terror and you want to see a pretty well made movie by a YouTuber who has no directing experience outside of this. So I would definitely recommend it no matter which side of the audience that you are on. So, what do you guys think about Iron Lung? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for all of my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, see you all next time.